Good morning. Today, as I do the devotion, I was drawn to one of my seminary texts that really speaks truth to listening to one another. The book is called Hearing Beyond the Words by Emma J. Justice. And there's this passage on page 52 that talks about seeing one another. Which is another way of looking at this idea of we notice more and are aware of more than what we know is going on in someone's life. So, for instance, she discusses, you may be in a conversation with someone who's talking about their family and then tears come to their eyes. And rather than assuming or guessing or ignoring what you see, that in a space of caring for the other, you could just say what you see. And this is also taken from the point of view of being compassionate and graceful. And then she goes on to look at how Jesus did this very well. The story of Zacchaeus specifically in this section. Zacchaeus' story from Luke 19, 5 through 10. Reads, when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. All who saw it began to grumble and said, he has gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner. Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much. Then Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because he too is the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and save the lost. As this, I think the lead-in here is the part that also helps us to see that some people aren't seeing it all. Zacchaeus is mentioned earlier that he is of short stature, and then he's a tax collector, so he's not loved by many. Probably outside of his family, and a lot of tax collectors were seen as conspirators with Rome. For the Jewish people, that was akin to close to blasphemy. And so, I guess as we look at our current culture, as we look at our current inability or unwillingness to listen to one another, I was thinking this is something to remember and to hold strongly in our hearts. That rather than assume we know the answer, rather than be okay with where we are, to listen. And we can listen in many ways, from what we see with our eyes, to what we hear with our ears, to what we feel. I mean, there's even those moments when sometimes the animal parts of our brain pick up on more things than we do, and we're uncomfortable or we feel a sadness in a conversation. And just speaking truth to that sometimes can help someone share a piece of what they're going through. And if there's one thing I think our country needs more of right now, it's listening to one another. We can make assumptions, especially once we begin to draw up battle lines. When we begin to say, my group is more right than your group, or begin to grab allies for who's the most important. And to be clear, I'm not talking about the movements, I'm talking about us individually. Right now, there is a really important issue trying to be discussed and pushed and to get this reality that there's injustice going on handled. What I'm talking about when I say not drawing up party lines, I mean when there is something that has hurt you or something that has damaged you, rather than figure out who is going to be on your side, this is a time to begin to listen to one another rather than to say who is the most right or who is the most wrong, or to tell your story to enough people who get impassioned and join on your side. Rather coming to this place where we can be ourselves comfortably, but also listen then to the other. Emma Justice continues on page 53. The power of communicating I see you transformed Zacchaeus' life. By seeing him, Jesus held up a mirror and Zacchaeus saw himself. Zacchaeus was able to become truly who he was, a son of Abraham. I see you still has power today. When we see someone and allow what we presume to be polite or correct to keep us from acknowledging who we see, the person remains unseen and unheard. We realize the response that we make to the spoken words may not convey that we have truly seen or heard, especially when we ignore the unspoken messages. So my hope for you today is that as you're having conversation, that you actually make sure to have conversations around what's going on. And in that, listen with more than just your ears. Listen with your spirit. Listen with your eyes. Notice how people are feeling. And sometimes we need to find a sense of who we are before we come into the difficult conversations so that we can have those and notice the other person. So we can say, I know this is hard for me. I think I've come to a place where I can hear an opposition, or I can hear a different point of view. Because right now I think we need more conversation, more honesty, more grace, more love. To put these in other terms, more courage, more resilience, more honesty about where we are. So may you listen to one another today. May you find moments where you can notice and see the person across from you, not just for what they're saying, but for the fact that they are a beloved child of God just like you are. May you be blessed today.